So now we're going to go into practice 3 for our strength block. You know, one of the things that we progressed on last block was kettlebell deadlift. And what's nice about kettlebell deadlift is we can pull from a set position. What's hard about that though is it's kind of hard to maintain that bottom position if we're really fatigued or we have poor flexibility. So we're going to take this into an RDL. And an RDL, the difference between a deadlift and an RDL is from top down or bottom up. Deadlift from a dead stop position, RDL coming from the top down. So I'm not in a dead stop position. So there's 2 things I can do here. One, I have to organize and manage myself a little bit differently and organize that balance and that stability here, combined with I can go to a range of motion that I can sustain for the entirety of that set and rep scheme and that time of retention. So we mentioned we're going to do a 4-2 exo tempo for sets of 8. That's a hard really training program, and if we can choose exercises strategically like an RDL over a deadlift, potentially we can increase that tension and that load in that posterior chain without having that compromised bottom position in the deadlift. So we like deadlifts for more strength stuff, and we like RDLs for a little bit more volume and hypertrophy stuff. So RDL will be paired up with a rotational bench, keeping that theme going all block, because that rotation allows us to press a little bit more weight because we are creating this packed shoulder position, as well as we can maybe potentially stress those muscle fibers in our pecs and our lats a little bit differently, because all of our body orients in a more transverse and oblique type of direction. So pecs come from here to there. They come this downward angle, and the same thing with lats. They come from here and then fan out towards the actual spine, going down and low. And when we're trying to load up these tissues, so to speak, it's finding that orientation, how we pull that insertion closer to the origin, pulling that insertion closer to the origin to load those tissues most effectively. And we can look at a rotational bench the same way we look at a rotational row, just loading up those tissues a little bit differently, but also you find that you're a little stronger when you can rotate or corkscrew that arm. And we can lead into this, not only can we get more range, we can get more load, and we can do it safer. So that will be 5 sets of 8 with a 4-2 exo tempo. Pause now will be in the bottom position. And then we're going to progress into our B series. We're going to take a position that we've done pretty routinely, this posterior lateral position. So lateral is feet symmetrical, toes pointed straight ahead. Posterior lateral is a 90-degree orientation of your feet. So when you're sitting down, you'll notice not only are you shifting or abducting, you're taking that back leg and you're stretching further along. So it's a little bit different stress on that hip and pelvis. It's going to be a little different loading, so you might not be able to use as heavy a weight, which is not the end of the world. It's not about putting as much weight on you as possible. It's trying to load these tissues and load this body in a certain way that constantly creates adaptation. And a posterior lateral position is just a nice progression from our lateral, or maybe even a single leg squat, which is trying to anti or prevent rotation going into that direction. So posterior lateral squat, when you hear that word squat, that means your feet are glued to the ground. When you hear that word lunge, that means you're moving. So when we're squatting, you're gluing your feet down, and then we're going to shift our weight to one side or go straight down. And that will be paired up with a barbell inverted row. We've done this exercise quite a bit, but the nice thing about a barbell inverted row, it's simple, it's easy, and we can load it up effectively today. And that is the key, is not necessarily choosing the most complex exercises, is having some sort of balancing effect for complexity matched with simplicity. So as we start to load you guys up and we start to create this adaptation from choosing more comprehensive set and rep schemes and time retention and increasing the complexity of the exercise, we can balance that out with exercises that are a little more simple in nature, but still have this tremendous effect. Not to mention too, we get a big bang for our buck with barbell inverted row because we're stressing our core, we're stressing that stability aspect, we're getting an isometric glute bridge, we're getting isometric reverse plank, so to speak, and working with horizontal pull pattern. That progresses us nicely to some other movements that we want to do down the road.